Aloha and welcome to Ward's WhatsApp at the Capitol. Hey Gene, what's happening at the Capitol? Well, this is budget time. It's not April 15 where we're going to pay our taxes, but I want you to know what really makes up the budget is your taxes. That is, withholding taxes is about 37% of our budget. And guess what the rest of it is when you go to the store and pay 4.5% of every sale. GET tax makes up 50% of our budget, which with there is a total of about 85-90% of the budget, and then it's other miscellaneous fees and other things. But when we have the budget, we have a $12 billion proposition for the state of Hawaii, and I want you to see a couple of things that I said on the floor of the House recently. Let's have a look.
Speaker, I rise in support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, you've heard a very, very, very comprehensive overview of the budget. I've never seen the chair speak as long as she has just completed. And in some ways, I'm going to be redundant, as if I looked over at her speech and I adopted a few of the things, and maybe I've added a couple of things in addition to her not mentioning it. But what we did in the Finance Committee is what the people of Hawaii do at the kitchen table, Mr. Speaker. They balance the budget, even though sometimes there are mistakes, and I think the Finance Chair pointed out very astutely, the governor screwed up in a couple of places where there's $67 million and $45 million that were out of place. So that was a corrective measure that made sense, but let me focus on what I find the most interesting and that I think we need to highlight. First, on the economic diversification, Mr. Speaker. For decades, this floor, the Senate floor, has talked about diversification. We are on the precipice of doing that. And I thank the chair for the $150,000 and the mention of PISCES, because right now, Mr. Speaker, space travel is going to be a new industry and it's going to be privatized. That $150,000 that the chair restored in PISCES reinvigorates an industry which now, with the head of PISCES, Hank Rogers, we have a really strong possibility of getting into the fast lane. Hank Rogers hangs around with Jeff Bezos. He hangs around with the Gates and all the big wheelers who are going to get into space big time. Elon Musk, for example. But as I mentioned in the Finance Committee, I will mention here so my colleagues know. Hank Rogers, as the chair of PISCES, is not going to put up with a lot of bureaucratic, slow-lane nonsense, Mr. Speaker. We need to let him calibrate his vehicle at a pace that makes sense with what's going on in the private sector. He just came back from Tokyo. He was at the European Space Agency presenting the Hawaii case just a few weeks ago. He knows what's going on, but DBED needs to get in step with them. It's not a warning, but it's saying that if we lose the space race, because we are the most ideally situated in the world, we will have really lost a big diversification of the economy. And space exploration is going to be big time, Mr. Speaker. The other thing I would point out that the chair didn't is that the people of Hawaii saved $39 million by taking the DOT tram out of the airport, so when you come to the arrivals and then you go to get your rental car, which is only about 300 yards away, they were going to put in a tram. Mr. Speaker, that is not wise use of taxpayers' money. So I commend the chair for that, and I think it's astute balancing of the budget, or an issue that is very astute to keep the finances used properly. Mr. Speaker, I would also note that the chair had mentioned the $2 million for the Small Business Innovation Research. This is based on the sound principle that without entrepreneurs, there are no job creation. Without job creation, there's no economic development. So this budget pays attention to that entrepreneurial principle and fact of life. No entrepreneurs, no development. You can only have a centralized economy go so far, and then it's got to go down to the individual. And that's where China is going to be limited in its development because it's still a centralized economy.
As you can see from my remarks, I'm pretty keen on something that's really out of this world. Notice the $150,000 I spoke about regarding PISCES. PISCES is the Pacific International Space Exploration Program that's located on the Big Island. This, to me, is the future of diversification of our economy. It's a way that we can, in effect, become leaders, not only in the U.S., but in the world for space exploration. Everybody knows that Mauna Kea is the closest you can get on this planet to being on the moon. And right now there's a moon base alliance that's being formed with the European Space Agency and NASA. And Hawaii is designated as one of the possible areas where all astronauts who go up to the moon base, which will then go on to Mars, will be the place where they will be resupplied and have their equipment and have all the other supplies. So Mauna Kea is a real target, and with that will be simulated living on the moon in various huts and housing and making basically water out of lava and doing other creative things. So this is a game changer, but this was only one of the items in the budget. You notice one of the other comments I made was the tram that they wanted to build at the Honolulu airport. It's like 300 yards away, and they wanted to put in a multi-million-dollar tram to do that. Right now, I think that's a waste of money, and I spoke up against that. Hopefully, it'll never get back in the budget. And quite frankly, I'm concerned that even with the Wiki buses, we should be moving sidewalks instead of the Wiki buses. I think we've had enough of that, and people are embarrassed, quite frankly, when they do come to the Honolulu International Airport. Anyway, so those were the comments on the budget, which otherwise is based upon your taxes, your GET, and your withholding taxes make it up. So thank you for helping the state of Hawaii. We've tried to balance our budget like you do around the kitchen table. But remember, April 15 is coming up, where the two things in America you must do. You must die and pay your taxes. Thank you, and aloha from Representative Gene Ward.